life, people have commented on my appearance, how striking I am, how effortlessly graceful I seem, but I've never seen myself that way. When I was younger, I had dreams of becoming a model, of stepping into the spotlight and making a name for myself. That dream, however, faded away when Lucas entered my life. "We don't need the money," he had said, his voice steady and firm. "I don't want you doing that kind of work." Back then, his decision became my decision, almost without question. Now, at 42, I live in the house of the man who shifted the course of my life. It's comfortable, steady, predictable. I share this space with his son Elliot from his first marriage. Elliot is 23, fresh out of university, where he studied photography and visual arts. Since returning home, he's been living on the upper floor of our duplex. The top level is his creative sanctuary, a place where canvases and sketchbooks are scattered alongside rolls of film and carefully arranged paintbrushes. It's always busy up there. Young women and men visit often, sitting for his portraits, drawn to his talent and his quiet charisma. At first, I thought little of it. To me, Elliot was just a young artist chasing his passion. But everything changed the day I accidentally caught a glimpse of his latest work. That morning, Lucas had already left for work. I was tidying up the hallway upstairs when I noticed Elliot's door slightly ajar. I wasn't planning to go in, but as I passed, my eyes fell on a canvas leaning against the wall inside. I stopped in my tracks. It was me. The painting was unmistakably my portrait, though the woman in it seemed almost otherworldly. She was graceful and radiant in a way I'd never imagined myself to be. Her eyes were deep, alive with emotion, and they seemed to hold a strength I hadn't thought I possessed. Pinned beside the painting was a photo. I recognized it. Was one I had posted on social media years ago. Something simple and candid. Elliot must have printed it as a reference. That realization startled me. He had studied me so closely, taken the time to recreate every detail, every line of my face in this breathtaking piece of art. I should have been unsettled, but I wasn't. Instead, I was struck by the way he saw me, someone bold, captivating, and powerful. My heart raced as I stood there, frozen in the doorway. After a moment, I turned and quietly made my way downstairs, my thoughts spinning. That painting lingered in my mind all day. I couldn't shake the image of it, the way it made me feel. Elliot saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and it stirred something deep inside. Later that afternoon, I heard raised voices coming from upstairs, a sharp argument that made me pause. A few moments later, a young woman stormed out of Elliot's room, her face flushed with anger, tears streaking down her cheeks. She didn't look at me as she rushed past. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay out of it, but curiosity and concern got the better of me. I found myself knocking softly on Elliot's door. "Elliot?" I called. There was a sigh from inside. "Come in," he said, his voice subdued. I stepped in cautiously. He was standing in the middle of the room, his shoulders slumped. In front of him was another canvas, a portrait he had been working on. It wasn't finished. The colours were vibrant, the details intricate, but something about it felt incomplete. "What's going on?" I asked gently. He turned to face me, a flicker of frustration in his eyes. "That painting was supposed to be part of a project for a client," he said. "They're paying a lot for it, more than I've ever been paid before. It's a huge opportunity, something that could really open doors for me. But..." His voice trailed off. "But what?" I prompted. He hesitated, then sighed. It's not working. The painting, it's good, but it's not what they're looking for. I can't deliver something I'm not proud of, something that doesn't feel right. And now I'm out of time. I could see the weight of it on his face, the way his shoulders sagged under the pressure. Is there anything I can do to help? I asked, though I wasn't sure what I was offering. Elliot met my gaze, his expression hesitant but hopeful. Actually, yes, there is something. He took a deep breath before continuing. Judith Sophia, the one I need. You're the person I've been trying to capture in my work, and I think if you let me paint you, it'll be exactly what this project needs. His words caught me off guard. Me? He nodded, stepping closer. You have this strength, this elegance. It's what I've been searching for. I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't have time to find someone else. And it's not just about the deadline, it's about you. You're the person I want to paint. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse this felt personal in a way I wasn't sure I was ready for. But another part of me was drawn to his sincerity, to the way he looked at me as if I were someone extraordinary. Are you sure about this? I asked, quietly. I've never been more sure, he said, his voice steady. Please, Sophia, will you let me do this? After a long pause, I nodded. All right. Relief and gratitude washed over his face. Thank you, he said softly. You won't regret this. That night, as Lucas went to bed, I quietly made my way back upstairs to Elliot's studio. The space was dimly lit, warm and inviting, with soft music playing in the background. Elliot had set up a chair for me near his easel, along with a cosy corner to change into the dress he had picked out for the painting. As I stepped into the dress and caught my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back at me looked poised, confident, and strikingly elegant. When I stepped into the room, Elliot's eyes lit up. You're perfect, he said, his voice filled with admiration. I sat in the chair he had prepared, my heart pounding as he began to paint. For hours, he worked in silence, his brush moving with precision and care. I watched him, mesmerized by the intensity in his gaze, the way he poured himself into every stroke. It was a moment, I would never forget a moment, that would change everything. The next morning, I felt different. It was hard to explain, but something about the hours I'd spent sitting in Elliot's studio had awakened a part of me I hadn't felt in years. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see a wife or a stepmother, I saw someone who could be seen, truly seen, in a way that was deeper than appearances. Lucas had left for work early, as always. The routine of our life together was as predictable as the sunrise. Breakfast was eaten in silence, save for the occasional rustle of a newspaper. It was the kind of life that once felt comfortable, but now I wondered if it had simply become routine. Elliot's work was like a jolt of electricity. It made me question things I hadn't thought about in years. Who I was, what I wanted, and whether I'd been settling for a life that didn't truly reflect me. When I walked upstairs later that day to check in with him, I noticed the door to his studio was open again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I stepped inside, my eyes immediately landing on the painting he'd been working on. It was breathtaking. The woman in the portrait was undeniably me, but she was also so much more. There was an elegance to her, a quiet strength that radiated from every brushstroke. Her eyes were alive, filled with an intensity that seemed to tell a story of resilience and grace. Do you like it? Elliot's voice startled me. I turned to see him standing behind me, his expression a mix of hope and nervousness. It's beautiful, I said softly. You've made me look, I don't know, different, better. It's not about making you look better, he said, shaking his head. It's about showing what's already there. You just don't see it. His words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning. I didn't know how to respond, so I simply nodded. Over the next few days, Elliot and I spent more time together than we ever had before. Every evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, I would slip upstairs to his studio, where we'd work in quiet harmony. He painted with a focus and intensity that was mesmerizing, and I found myself opening up to him in ways I hadn't expected. He asked me about my life, before Lucas about my dreams, my passions, the things I'd left behind. I told him about my brief stint in modelling, about how I'd once imagined a future filled with creativity and adventure. And now, he asked one night, his brush poised midair, what do you dream about now? The question caught me off guard. What did I dream about now? For years, my dreams had taken a back seat to practicality, to the life I'd built with Lucas. I don't know, I admitted. I guess I haven't thought about it in a long time. Elliot didn't press me further, but the question lingered in my mind long after I'd left his studio that night. The turning point came a week later. Elliot had completed the painting, and it was nothing short of extraordinary. He'd managed to capture not just my likeness, but something deeper sense of who I was, or maybe who I could be. When he showed it to me, I was speechless. I want you to have it, he said, his voice quiet but firm. What? I stared at him, confused. But it's for your project. You said it was for a client. They can wait, he said with a small smile. This one's for you, it's yours. I didn't know what to say. The painting felt like more than a gift, it felt like a challenge, a call to action. It was as if Elliot was daring me to see myself in a new light, to step into the version of myself that he saw so clearly. That evening, as I sat in my bedroom staring at the painting, I felt a wave of emotions I couldn't quite name. Gratitude, certainly, but also fear, excitement, and something that felt dangerously close to longing. The next day, Lucas noticed the change. You seem different lately, he said over breakfast, eyeing me curiously. Do I asked, keeping my tone light. Yes, he said, his brow furrowing slightly. You're, I don't know, brighter, I guess, happier. I didn't know how to respond to that. Was I happier? It was hard to say. What I did know was that Elliot's painting had awakened something in me, something I couldn't ignore. As the weeks went on, I found myself spending more and more time in Elliot's studio. He started a new series of paintings, this time inspired by the stories I'd shared with him about my past. Each piece was a tribute to the person I used to be, the person I'd almost forgotten. It wasn't just about the art, it was about what the art represented. Through his work, Elliot was giving me permission to reconnect with a part of myself I'd long buried. But the more time we spent together, the more complicated things became. Lucas began to notice the shift in our dynamic, the way Elliot and I seemed to share a connection that went beyond the ordinary. One evening, as I was heading upstairs to Elliot's studio, Lucas stopped me. Where are you going? He asked, his tone sharp. Just to see Elliot, I said, keeping my voice steady. He frowned. You've been spending a lot of time up there lately. He's working on a project, I said, trying to sound casual. He asked for my help. Lucas didn't look convinced, but he didn't press the issue. Still, his suspicion lingered, casting a shadow over the days that followed. I knew I was walking a fine line. Whatever was happening between Elliot and me, whatever unspoken understanding we shared it, was beginning to feel like a secret, one that threatened to unravel everything. And yet, I couldn't stay away.